I think I'll do a finish-up video on the anti-bullshit man stuff. I don't know if we really did finish this argument. So there was two value contentions of mine that he's refuting or proposing to be refuting. I mean, the substantial one is that I say, in the end game, it doesn't matter. All this justice stuff, all nuance of who actually experiences the suffering, whether it's Adolf Hitler or little Susie's sweetness, it just doesn't matter. It's just consciousness suffering in the end, and whether it reflects on it and says, gee, I was such an idiot, or ooh, wasn't I a jerk, or whether it ever gets to a point of saying, actually admitting, saying uncle, that there's just no point in having this fight so somebody can say uncle. Just isn't. There's no reward in it. The only practical use justice ever has is preventing harm in the future, changing people's behavior, preventing them from putting something in jeopardy, preventing them from doing something wrong. There is no undo button. You can never fix a past crime. You can just prevent future harm, and that's all you can do. So yeah, the value equations are always long-term and final. There's a net resolution to all these problems, all these circumstances. There's a best, like my day today, there's an optimum performance level out there. There's a blueprint of the optimum performance I could get out of my day. And some of that might include doing things that I would think would be completely idiotic. Like maybe the best thing I can do today is go give $500 to a drunk. That might be. That would have the greatest impact in terms of preventing future harm. Or I could give it to a crook or a criminal or some other thing. So anyway, the other assertion of his, another assertion, let's just say, I'll just play with these two for now. So it's this net economics, he really finds it obnoxious that there is really some sort of, it matters that the right people somehow are punished for their behavior. Like there's an actual point to punishing people beyond creating deterrence. And the other would be, this statement's interesting. He mocks this idea. Inmendham ferociously asserts that not doing equals doing. It's a bulletproof moral doctrine, you see. Okay, so he's mocking it. Because it establishes that we are responsible for every interaction, which is an action of ours that could have led to some reduction of harm that we didn't in any way cause, since it doesn't matter to him that we didn't cause it, or that the suffering individual caused their own harm. All right. So, but the irony is this doing equals not doing equals doing thing is exactly what Tranquil was arguing in his thought experiment. So this is a video that Anti-Bullshit Man featured on his Anti-Bullshit Man, his main channel. So he features Tranquil's video, and in Tranquil's thought experiment, it is asserted that you have an obligation to essentially stop a doctor who is, by Tranquil's definition, doing evil, because he's preventing human beings from coming into existence in two different ways. And so, these are anti-natalists, by the way, who are applauding this thought experiment. They claim to be anti-natalist, again, so this is we got atheists who won't call themselves atheists, and apparently we have fake anti-natalists who are willing to call themselves anti-natalists when they're really not anti-natalists, quite obviously, because they think abortion and benignly putting individuals out of their misery, so to speak, their potential misery, is somehow a crime if you do it in a way where actually nothing of value is destroyed. Nothing that can be claimed to have any value, unless you're going to claim that a 5-year-old has some sort of rational mandate to exist, and some sort of rationally detectable potential to do something fantastic just by existing alone. Well, anyway, let's not even get into the thought experiment itself. That's not the point. The point is, it's a thought experiment that requires the individual to stop somebody from doing what they're doing. And so it's exactly the not doing is doing argument. If I don't stop him, I'm somehow guilty of endorsing his actions. If I don't, send him to the police, call the cops on him. So it's a rock solid illustration of my argument that yes, not doing is doing. You just can't avoid this not doing is doing thing. The fact is, if you know something's wrong and you don't do anything about it, you've essentially endorsed it. And that's just the truth. I don't like the truth. I'm implicated by this truth every day, just like everybody else. I'm fully aware of Chinamen and work in horrible working conditions. I'll still buy stuff. I don't send a check to China saying, I'm sorry, here's some extra money, give it to the people that I'm abusing. I don't do it. So I'm a bit of an asshole, a bit of a scumbag, because I know it's there, I know the problem exists, and I'm not doing anything to fix it. So, I can admit that. I suck. I'm not even close to as good as I should be. It's just the truth. And I should be, the focus of my intellect is eliminate harm. Maximize the value we get out of every gasoline, of every calorie of energy we consume. Let's maximize my impact on the world in reducing harm. My intellect knows that is the agenda. Unfortunately, dragging the rest of these parts, especially the penis and the other shit, it doesn't want to even hear about this kind of crap, okay? It doesn't want to know about obligations and all that shit, okay? Because it's a selfish son of a bitch. And let's just admit that's the reason why. But there's no rational reason not to accept the fact that there's two different outcomes. One has less suffering in it. You go with the outcome with less suffering in it. It's just that obvious. Less diminishment of sentient welfare. And some of this economics gets a little tricky. How do you exactly quantify dollar for dollar? Because you could obviously argue that as you intensify the suffering in one individual, its weight, its gravity, multiplies by some square factor. So you can't just say, okay, I'm just gonna poke 7 billion people, just give them a little poke, and that'll add up in terms of all those pokes added up together. Obviously, if you did all those pokes on one individual, it would drive them insane. So, it's not exactly the same thing. So you have to do these calculations get a little complicated in terms of what you're imposing for what gain, or for how you're balancing two different circumstances. But again, in my arguments, I've pointed out that we do know the extremes. We even know we know a ton of stuff. Most 90% of the acreage of value, we can understand the difference between, whatever. Me, I don't know what me using this camera. That's not even a good example. Or the quality of it, or some other, me having a quality enhancement versus somebody else having dirty water to drink. That these are huge differences in terms of a risk equation. Me jaywalking versus them having to risk drinking contaminated water. We can measure these things and say, it would be that these trade-offs shouldn't be made. That wasn't a great example either. But anyway, I'm just saying that I think any thought experiment you come up with that has a net end where you have two choices, two worlds. One world has more suffering in it, one world has less suffering in it. You have to go with the world that has less suffering. It's just logical. And it doesn't matter whether the one world, Adolf Hitler, doesn't get properly punished or not. It just doesn't matter whether Adolf Hitler gets properly punished or not. It just doesn't. Just doesn't. You can't, like I said, there's no undo. There's no justice because there's no undo button. So once you're done preventing something, once you've gotten the value out of harm in terms of creating prevention mechanisms, harm has no value. Harm is always bad, no matter who's experiencing it. And it just doesn't matter. If it has no deterrent value, it has no value. And I don't think you can come up with a thought experiment to disprove that fact. And so I think this rhetoric of this mocking tone reveals you to be the small-minded, small other things perhaps too. No, the only thing that matters to him is that it was caused. So again, not just that it was caused, but that it was experienced. Again, prevent it, and if you don't, and you could have, you fucked up. Just that simple. It's the best value with a capital V theory ever. Ha ha ha, little squirrely mouth face thing. So again, I don't think he's made an argument defending against the fact that not doing is doing. Demonstrate to me where not doing isn't doing, because it is. And I don't think he can make a thought experiment demonstrating where. I mean, he wrote on his blog some thought experiment that had to do with two guys that grow up, and one's a scumbag, and one's an honorable guy who goes to work every day, and the scumbag steals his money, and with the premise that he'll never steal again, and that somehow this is the best way it's worked out because it didn't bother the guy too much that all his money got stolen. So that was the argument. It didn't bother him too much. So yeah, if you can work that out to be a net benefit, then yeah, that's just the way it is, and there's no point. And he said, well, anti-bullshit man would see that the bad guy got thrown in jail and suffered 10 years in jail. And I'm like, yeah, and that accomplishes what? So the bad guy can say, oh, gee, wasn't I a scumbag? And maybe he won't even say that. So you'll torture him for 10 years, and he won't even say uncle. And you think that's a better outcome? Yeah, I'd say that's a silly, idiotic outcome. So again, I don't see how that thought experiment undoes anything or explains in any way how the world is a better place because you tortured an idiot. Again, all criminals are idiots. If you don't understand that, then you're missing something really obvious. All criminals are idiots. They don't understand the simple economics. They don't understand that other people's welfare is as valuable as their own. They don't understand the simplest, basic things about our reality here. They're fucking idiots. And you think there's some value in torturing them to get them to say, uncle, I'm an asshole. Get them to say, I was an asshole, I was an asshole. So you get them to admit it. And you torture them to get them to admit it. And that's somehow an accomplishment. No, I'm sorry, no sale. Anyway, till next time.